My name is Richard Ferrer, and I can say I am cloud hired.
That yes, come and join and get cloud hired. I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
Hey, Go Cloud Architect family. I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired, guys.
So I'll just say I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired thanks to Go Cloud Architects.
It worked for me, and now I'm cloud hired. Because of Google Architect program, I am cloud hired. See!
I am cloud hired. Thank you, Mike and the GlowCloud team.
Welcome, everyone. We are here to answer any tech career questions you may have, whether you're looking to become a cloud architect, whether you're looking to become an enterprise architect, a security architect, a network engineer, a network architect, or whatever it is. My name is Mike Gibbs. I've been in technology now in various architecture roles for a little over 25 years. And I've been helping others just like you get your first tech job, get promoted in tech, and people I've worked and coached and trained are now working at Apple, Amazon, Cisco, Google, IBM, Microsoft, Accenture, Deloitte, KPMG, Capgemini, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Barclays Bank, JP Morgan Chase Bank, PNC Bank, LeaseWeb, Credera, Palo Alto Networks, Netspoke, Zscaler. These are some of the people I've trained. So if you've got any questions, I want to help you build your career. So ask your questions. And I come here at least once a week to try and answer questions to guide you. So you don't have to learn by making mistakes. You can learn from the mistakes that others have made and take a rocket ship to the top as opposed to up and down based upon mistakes. So if you've got some questions, please ask them. I want to tell you before we begin, we have a couple of 3 things that I think would be good for you. We have a How to Become an Architect webinar tomorrow. In this case, we'll go over the cloud architect role, but we'll also talk about security architects, enterprise architects, AI architects, if you desire as well. We'll go over the role. We'll talk about what we do. We'll talk about all the skills that you absolutely need to be great in your role as an architect, to be able to get hired. We'll talk about how to skip HR. We'll talk about everything that you need to know. So come join us on the completely free webinar. It is tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tyrone from my team will drop a link to that in the chat box. I also wanted to let you know we have a free guide in the description of this video on how to become a cloud architect, also how to become an enterprise architect and an AI architect. And that will list everything that you need to learn and know in a concise guide for you. Maybe actually read that, read the guide, and then maybe join us on the completely free architecture webinar the next day. And we hope to see you there. And I'm reminding everyone that we're doing some free Google Professional Cloud Architect certification training this week. So if you want to join us, please join us. It's completely free. We've been having some fun getting pretty geeky for the last 2 weeks. Tyrone can drop the link to that as well. So if you've got some questions, please bring them to me. I don't have a lot of time today because of what's going on this afternoon, but I really do want to do what I can to actually assist you in terms of answering questions and the such. Question from Growth Mindset. You're an AI engineer and you want to move to cloud sales. Great thing to do. I love sales careers. I love solutions architect careers. So let's talk about what you need to do. So when you want to go from one career to another career, it's all about developing a different set of skills. And it's about developing the skills you need for your new job. So I used to practice internal medicine in my youth. I wanted to be a network engineer. Effectively, what I did is I spent the 9 months becoming a Cisco certified internet expert. And right around that time, I was hired as a network engineer. Poof, overnight. So the point is you have to just develop the skills. And when you have the skills, you'll be hired. Now, these are the skills you're going to need to be in a global account manager, or you should at least say an account executive at a reputable tech company selling cloud services. The first thing you'll need to be able to do is do what's called account segmentation and prioritization, which means you're going to have to be able to identify high value accounts, assess their current technology spend and their future potential as a client, and be able to prioritize your resources and your time accordingly. You're definitely going to have to understand your company's go-to-market strategy and how they position their current technology portfolios. Now, you'll also have to have a good degree of business acumen and financial literacy, because you're going to have to be able to examine a company's challenges and be able to build a business case, an ROI model, a total cost of ownership model. You need to be able to predict how your changes will impact the client's revenue, for example. So you'll have to be able to do that. Now, you'll have to be an executive, because you're going to be basically selling to the VITO, the very important top officer, which is the CEO, the CFO, the CIO, and CTO. So that means you're going to need a lot of CXO relevancy. Now, when you're involved in cloud sales is like cloud architecture. You're going to be leading a team of 15 to 50 people if it's a big sell. So when you're in something like that, that means you're going to need a lot of leadership, because it's cross-functional collaboration, that type of thing. Now, when it comes to sales, you're going to need the ability to exercise influence. Robert Cialdini did a lot of really good work there. You can read his writing. I really think that's great from an influence perspective. They call it exercising influence. You'll have to know how to negotiate deals. Now, you're going to also have to be able to do what's called account planning, which is where you're going to figure out who you speak to, map out the accounts and those kinds of things. And you're going to need what's called consultative selling. And that's what solutions architects and cloud architects do, where you ask the business, you learn about the business, they say something about the business, you ask a question about that, they say something about it, you ask a question until you ultimately get to the problem. And a good account manager is going to be very good at some very good storytelling, if you will. Great account managers really have some great presentation skills, because they're delivering presentations all the time. They're very good at answering questions live, and they've got a degree of program and project management skills to be able to manage the team that are going to be responsible for responding to RFIs, responding to RFPs, responding to RFQs. A good account manager, a good sales rep has some ability to look at data and get some data-driven insights. They should be able to identify risk and figure out ways to help mitigate risks. And they should be able to look for gaps between where the client is and where the client needs to be. A lot like a solutions architect, but typically with more business acumen and less technical skills. And in sales, if you're going to be in sales for a long term, you have to be ethical. And I know that's going to sound crazy, but the key is, if you sell a car and you only sell it to one person one time, those sales reps selling a car can be good. They could be not be good, but it doesn't matter. When you're selling into tech and, this year you're selling 10 million and next year you're selling 20 million, if it doesn't work and doesn't help the customer, they don't buy in the future. So your integrity, your responsiveness, these are the things that you need to do. Now, I know you popped this. If you want to come onto a webinar and you want me to assess some of these skills and see if you have them and baseline you, I'm more than happy to do that. So that's typically where you're going to need to start. Chris, we can go to the next one. Question from Growth Mindset. What would be your advice for someone straight out of high school who is going for software engineering? Maybe guide those young ones where to start. So Growth Mindset, I would never advise anyone to go into software engineering. Now, I've also not advised people to go into software engineering and Growth Mindset. 2 years ago, we stopped selling our cloud engineering program, almost 3 years ago now, and I'm going to tell you why. So Growth Mindset, when we look at the future, if we look at the future careers that are actually going to exist, we have to understand what AI's capabilities are and what AI's capabilities are not. So if we understand that AI can code and AI can do software development fairly well, Microsoft's writing 30% of their code, Google's writing 25 to 30% of their code, Meta's writing 25 to 30% of their code, and you notice they're laying off a lot of software developers, and I think we're just in the beginning of this. So AI can code, AI can write a Terraform script, AI can write a Python script, and that's why I don't recommend people go into DevOps or cloud engineering. I recommend cloud architecture and other architectures, and I will tell you why. And I'll also tell you how the engineers can also be safe. And I will also tell you what I typically do with high schoolers, and I've had a lot of success with high schoolers that are doing great. The first thing that I would do is I would look for something that AI can't do. AI can't do architecture, and the reason AI can't do architecture is it takes a lot of meeting with clients, a lot of expertise in how the underlying technology fits and which business problems it solves. AI, an architect has to lead an architecture team of 15 to 50 people. AI can't do that. AI, our solutions architect or cloud architect may have to sell an $80 million product, and nobody buys $80 million from AI. The solutions architect, the sales rep have to build relationships, entertain clients, give presentations, and move people to spend money. So solution architecture, great opportunities, and I've gotten a lot of people that as their first job. Cloud architecture, again, I've gotten lots of people. Enterprise architecture, security architecture, or sales, or leadership. So I wouldn't be focusing on learning to code. I think in about 3 years from now to 5 years from now, at the outset, everybody in the world will be a programmer. It will be something like this. I create a program that will create visual things on the TV that's going to entertain my cat for the next 3 hours, and I'll have birds and fishes that are jumping around, and my cat will be happy. So that's the future, and hundreds of billions of dollars are going in to make that happen, and the leadership of all the tech companies are making that happen. So I would say figure out what you want to do. Now, I've worked with lots of people. For example, I worked with this young man, Mitchell. He was in high school. When he was in high school, I trained him in networking. He got a Cisco Certified Network Associate with me, and he was halfway to the Cisco Certified Network Professional when he was in high school. Now, he chose to go to college first. He could have gotten a tech job, but he chose to go to college first. By the time he was done college, not only did he have a Cisco Certified Network Professional, but I taught him how to speak. I taught him how to present. I taught him how to lead. Now, when the rest of his students graduated college, none of them had jobs, and within a month he had a really great job at a great tech company, went on to become a product architect at Cisco, and now is a product architect in a cybersecurity company that I probably shouldn't name. But his career was like a rocket ship. So I think we have to understand in the future there's two sets of skills, and you have to be able to do the things that AI can't do. So here's what AI can't do, and this is what your architect of the future looks like, and this is what your engineer looks like. It's the judgment that matters. When you go to your physician, it's the judgment that they have, which is the right or wrong. So if you have deep domain expertise, maybe he or she focuses on one thing. Maybe it's a component of networking, maybe it's an AI thing, maybe it's something, but they develop deep domain expertise. The deep domain expertise gives them strong problem-solving skill. Now, when they develop deep expertise, it cultivates almost an intuition because you know a little bit about a lot of things and you can start to plan things and how they interact together. Now, that means when you understand it, you can weigh the judgments. Should I use this AWS WAF? Should I use this Palo Alto WAF? Should I use this Cisco WAF? Should I use a next generation firewall? What are my architectural trade-offs? What are my engineering trade-offs? So that's the tech pro of the future. Now, the tech pro of the future can lead or drive change. Why? Because hands-on people that configure, they're just not needed anymore, and they won't be in the next few years. But a technology professional that walk into an organization, understand an organization's challenge, change the people, change the processes, change the technology, and make that organization do better, like an enterprise architect. Right now, people that can do that get paid between $200,000 and $800,000 a year because there's no one that can do it. And AI can't do this. So if you're able to create a strategic roadmap, understanding the client, understanding what's coming in the future in technology and how those technologies will help people, you can never be replaced. Now, if you as a technology can walk in, meet with the stakeholders of business and the C-suite, learn their business, learn their challenges, and come up with a solution, poof, you're good. Now, the kind of tech professional we're talking about is going to be able to play strategically. They're going to be a trusted advisor. They're going to walk in and understand the needs and make a solution the same way a physician would, as opposed to being biased by what's ever in a certification. And the ability to ethically influence others. I mean, that's what it takes to really build a career. And you may notice when I talk about this, we're talking about jobs that pay between $200,000 and $1 million a year, and they're all architects. The CEO is an architect job. The CIO is an architect job. Truthfully, a global account manager is architecting a sales process. So anything where you take a problem and creatively solve it, That's where I recommend them go. But something that involves people, something that involves going out there and others, and heavy duty coordination, facilitation, and expertise, because those are the skills that are in demand, and those are the skills that AI can't do. And you can know for sure what companies are going to do is they're going to say, I don't need these people anymore, which is the horrible, most saddest thing in the world. But now I've got all this AI that can create all these things. How do I use the AI for efficiency? That's your architecture. So I hope that helps. That's what I would do. And I can tell you, I'm working with a young man from Pennsylvania. He's 16 years old. He already knows networking and data center technology. He has an AWS Solutions Architect Professional. He has a Cisco Certified Network Professional. He's working on his CCIE, and he's got leadership skills, sales skills, executive presence. And by the time he graduates high school, I'm pretty sure he'll be a CCIE as well. And to me, the CCIE is the intro level in networking, and he's going to be that. He's going to be that good at 18 years old. So that's what I recommend. Start now, and then after you've got your skills, then go to college and get a degree, and let your employer pay for it. Great question, growth mindset. Blake, for people new to cloud DevOps, how would you create and showcase your projects for the jobs to demonstrate your skills? Excellent question, Blake. So the question first, Blake, is which job do you want? Because the things that you use to showcase your skills are going to be based upon the job you want. So if we're talking about an architect, we're talking about thought leadership documents. We're talking about architectural white papers. We're talking about reference architectures. We're talking about sample RFI, RFP, RFQ responses, sample presentations. So that'll be architect projects. But what if you wanted to be a cloud engineer or a DevOps engineer? That will require different projects. So the first thing that I want you to understand, Blake, is when it comes to hiring, I don't care if you can click the boxes and build anything. I care if you understand the underlying technology, where the underlying technology fits, and the strengths and the weaknesses of the various technologies, and why you choose what you chose. So let me give you an example of a project that says, I can't hire this person. And let me give you an example of a project that says, I need this person. So an example of a project that will get you an internship, but not a job, is setting up a WordPress website on AWS, where you go in there, you basically take an EC2 instance, you install Apache web server on it or an Nginx web server on it. You put a little HTML page, you set up an internet gateway, you set up DNS, and then you tell everybody about it in a 40-page document. Don't do that. And here's the reason why. That shows that you know how to do a bunch of things. Guess what? AI can do that. And AI is free. Now, if instead you wrote a paper that said, here is a common problem that needs to be solved, and here is the solution, and here is the build. And let me give you the example. So when the person does the website, and they put up a WordPress website, which is one of the worst projects, and I see it every day, and they say, here's how I did it. I went to Ubuntu, I typed these commands, I did this on Apache, I did this. Now, what happens when a hiring manager like me sees that? If that person comes in, and we won't interview the person, but if we were to interview the person, here's what the interview was. Tell me about that interesting project. Tell me how you sized your EC2 instance in terms of CPU cores and DRAM. Tell me the storage performance that you use and the type of drive you use based upon the storage performance you need based upon how many hits. When it came to the operating system, why did you choose Ubuntu versus Red Hat? Was there a decision that actually was made in here? When it came to hardening the operating system, what did you do? And how did you harden it? Now, when it came to the security decisions, how did you set up your customer IAM? When it came to your security decisions, how did you secure it? Did you use, I see you used a web application firewall from Amazon. Do you think that would work in this and this and this environment? What are the strengths and weaknesses of that? So that's the problem. So if you want to do something, first find the job you want. If it's architecture, come to our architecture webinar tomorrow and I will give you projects. But if it is engineering, let's talk about something that would work. So Blake, if we understand that 98% of organizations, 98% are multi-cloud. So the first thing is, if I was going to build a cloud project, it would be on at least 2 clouds, a minimum of 2 clouds. So a project that would work is, let's say you created 2 clouds. You created 50 subnets per cloud. You put 2 virtual machines in each cloud. You set up a basic Kubernetes environment. You had a couple containers running a Kubernetes environment, and all this stuff is load balanced. Then you had an interface, for example, and maybe you put a website on both of these environments and set up DNS load balancing 50-50 between 2 cloud providers. And then you talk about the security of it. And you talked about why you chose Okta or why you chose Active Directory or whatever it is you chose for your customer IAM that you chose. Why you chose the Palo Alto firewall versus the Cisco firewall versus the AWS, the architectural considerations and choices you make. And then when you talk about whether you picked Nginx or Apache, be able to substantiate the data as to why you made those decisions and where it was. And when you talk about the load balancing that you typed versus a reverse proxy, talk about why you used what you used. Now, when I see something like that and a person says, wow, they put something together, they built a real life thing, and wow, they told me what they did and why they did and the logic behind it, that's a person I want to hire on the spot. And the reason is they can do the job and they've just proved it to me. So show that you understand the context, not just how to. Imagine I had a doctor that only knew how to hand out pills, but they didn't know how to diagnose. They didn't know how to do surgery. They didn't know how to even find the problem. They just knew how to hand out pills. Well, that's what the building labs look like doctor just handing out pills without knowing why. Now, if you create the lab that I told you and you know why and you think about it, and it takes you a month to figure out what you're going to do and then another couple of weeks to build it, that's the project people are going to care about. So make it big, make it bold, and be great. That's what I would do. But if it's architecture related, don't build something. Come to the architecture webinar tomorrow. All right. Hello, you're 18 years old and looking to become a cloud architect. Wonderful. But you have a battery citation from a school fight and you wanted to know if you'd be wasting your time. So, Aaron, you probably will be just fine. I've worked with one person who had a felony conviction that was in jail for about 8 years, who's now working as an architect after we trained this person. This person is a highly intelligent person, highly capable. And truth be told, if he was my next door neighbor, I'd be happy because his heart is just wonderful. But yes, I've definitely worked with people that had a lot more than a battery charge that were able to move on and in the future. There are parts of this country where it's illegal to actually run a background check on someone prior to employing them because they fear it's unfair to someone that's actually paid their time. So it all depends on the company. Now, I will tell you, when I've worked with people that have had a background, it's not as easy. So, for example, a person I'm referring to got hired by 3 companies. 2 of the companies on the background check said, I'm sorry. And the 3rd company said, we don't care. It's been like 20 years. And the person's done well. So I wouldn't worry about it so well. Things happen in life. But I would be prepared to say, to be able to say, look, I was a little younger. Something happened. It's not me anymore. I've gone to whatever. And I'm only saying this because, you could have been attacked and defended yourself and been charged with battery, and anything like that could be possible as well. And I'm not here to judge. I don't judge people or anything for anyone. It's just because we never know how we get into situations. And it could have been something like that. But if it wasn't something like that, be able to talk about why you're no longer in a position and what you've done to learn calmness and harmony and peace. But go for your dreams. Don't let anything or anyone hold you back. You can do anything no matter what. I promise you can. So don't let it hold you back. Go out there, take some pride, and become great. And when you're so good, and there's no one out there that can do the job, there really isn't, people are going to forget about it. So go become a cloud architect. Get the right training and fight hard through the training and keep going until you win. I know you'll be successful, Aaron. Why don't you come to the Architect webinar tomorrow? We'll talk more about the role, and I can ask questions if you want. I'd be more than happy to do so. Dr. Annis, how long is our security architecture program, and does it cover AI security? So our program does, of course, cover AI security, and the length of the program is until you are hired. So I know that sounds a little silly. I will tell you that about 8 to 12 months is about all one would need to go through the program and have all the skills to be hired. But I keep people in our program until the day they are hired because we're not a boot camp. And, what if you start our program and, I just had back surgery. It knocked me out for 6 weeks. And things happen. And I had a student, for example, that needed surgery and that knocked them out for a couple months, but we brought them back and they stayed until they were hired. So you're with us until you're hired in any of our programs. We are very serious about that. We want every client we have, anyone that invests us, to be hired, and we let you stay in there until you are hired. But yes, it covers AI security and about 8 to 12 months, typically speaking. And a lot of that's going to be about your background. Now, people that have heavy sales backgrounds typically get hired fairly quickly. Wallace Agana was an example of someone like that. He got hired at JP Morgan Chase as an enterprise architect as his first job pretty quickly. Al was a student of ours, got his first job as a senior solutions architect at Deloitte after about 12 months, but he had a really good sales background. But it was a senior solutions architect. He skipped the whole solutions architect thing as his first job. But I'd say it's until you're hired, but about 8 to 12 months on average. Hi, Mike. You're interested in the AI Architect program. You can't find much salary information online. You're not going to. And the reason you're not going to is, these architectural roles are, at least half of them have been like, architecture, okay, you're an AI architect. But, you can assume about average is about $200,000 for any architect role. And you can see that whether it's a cloud architect, whether it's anything. Now, when we move into distinguished architect and principal architect roles, we're typically dealing with $300,000-$400,000 on average. When we start getting into enterprise architect roles, it's about $200,000 to $800,000 a year on average. And I can tell you the difference between them. The bigger the coordination, the bigger the facilitation, the more leadership, the higher the pay. And you can see that as you walk through other organizations, that as you move up and your sphere of influence goes up, that's where your pay really changes. Let me see if I have this slide that I can show you to kind of put it into context for various architectures. And, here we go. This will work. Let me just build this. Now, I made this slide for the cloud architect, but cloud architect, security architect, it's all really almost the same in pay for most of the companies we're talking about. But let me just bear with me for a second. I've got something that I can show you as you can start. And it'll give you an example of why I'm talking about the business acumen piece. And that's going to be the key determinant of your salary. So here's an example of, let me make it a little more visible for you to see. And these are directly off of Glassdoor. And these are all in line with, what I've earned or seen basically over the years with the people we trained. So if you're looking at a principal solutions architect, and a solutions architect could be an AI architect, it could be selling cloud solutions, network solutions. If you look, Amazon pays around $372 on average with a range of about $300 to $500. Oracle pays around $300. Microsoft pays on average $378. Google's principal architect salary is around $508. And why am I saying that? What you're going to notice is the principal architect is typically director level pay. Now, when you get to senior director, this is the kind of money we're typically talking about in an average tech company. $527 at Cisco, $540 at Palo Alto, $550 at NVIDIA. And that's what something that we're not counting the stock so much there. Otherwise, it would be so much more. But what you can see is as we get more businessy, so what's different between these senior directors? They manage a lot of people. So when you become an executive architect like me and you get a senior director title like I would have, or a VP title like I would have, you're still getting these bigger salaries. So what is the difference between a $100,000 architect and a $500,000 architect? It's the amount of change you can drive in your client. It's your ability to be able to walk in. Let me bear with me so I can see what's in front of me. It's to be able to walk in, ask the right questions, know how to find the right stakeholders, get the right questions, find the stakeholders' needs, design for the stakeholders' needs, get stakeholder input, feedback, guide the stakeholders, manage the vendors, and convince the client to go spend money in terms of things. And Blake, yes, I'm referring to US dollars when I talk about those salaries. That's typically what we're saying. But when it comes to thought leadership documents, how long should they be and what kinds of things should they focus on? Oh, Dingleman, I almost wish you were in last night's executive architect program where we spent 2 hours describing what goes into a thought leadership document. So when you're creating a thought leadership document, the companies and people are doing it for a wide variety of reasons. And some of the reasons they're doing it is to build a brand. And some of the reasons they're doing it is to create buzz and interest. So first thing you want to do when you're going to write a thought leadership document is you need to clarify the purpose of the document. Are you trying to get hard? Are you trying to sell $1 billion of technology gear? Or are you trying to get meetings? So you have to determine your objectives first. And then you have to determine the audience, because your audience matters. If I'm writing for a hiring manager, I want to show certain things that hiring managers want to see. Now, if I'm writing to sell something, I might be writing it for the chief information officer or the chief executive officer. And I might also have my techies write something for the engineers, which is very different. Now, I'm also going to consider, am I writing for a global audience or a regional audience? And certain things might and if so, we may have to make modifications in our document. So we're going to look for a topic. We're going to create a lot of market research. We're going to get statistics and proof to show why we have the perspectives we have, and we're going to back it up with evidence. And we're going to order it with like an executive summary. Then we're going to introduce the content. Then, typically speaking, we're going to do a deep dive into the content and a substantiation and evidence why we're doing what we're doing. And then potentially, if we have an available case study, we might actually have a case study. We will definitely, in any good thought leadership, have a discussion of trade-offs. This option is great, but it has this weakness. This option has this strength, but this weakness. We chose this option because of this. And I typically add some future outlook and then some kind of call to action. If you want to add an enterprise architect like me on your team, send me an email, click here or something like that, or book an appointment with me to learn more, or book an appointment with Cisco or whatever. Call your Cisco account manager. So that's typically what goes into writing a real thought leadership document that's going to get you hired. And I can tell you, the first one I wrote was an intro to multicast. I wrote it in 2001. Nobody knew who I was in networking before I wrote that. And within like a month of writing that, I had been in like 6 countries talking about this document. Later that year, I traveled 200,000 miles just on Continental Airlines, which is now United, not let alone all the other airlines. I got to meet people in the Middle East, Asia, all over Europe, all over Central and South America based on that paper. And that made my career to go poof. I went to Cisco, and then right after that, it was everything. Cisco had me writing thought leadership documents. So that's exactly what you want to do. So things you could focus on in cybersecurity. Why cloud security? The differences between data center security and cloud security, and why cloud's weaknesses demand security weaknesses WAN zero trust. You could write why zero trust is not enough. Zero trust plus defense in depth is the combination. You could write something on why traditional role-based IAM is not good enough, and why we need context-aware IAM. You can write an article of AI integrated into cybersecurity, AI in Siemens source systems, AI in your firewalls, AI in your IDS, IPS systems, AI in your IAM systems. That'd be the kind of thing I would do to Dingleman, and I know you know the answers to a lot of those things. Please, what sorts of projects should a cloud architect or a solution architect focus? Thought leadership. So the first thing I want you to understand is, what does a cloud architect do? Now, what a cloud architect does is probably not what you think they do. So I'll give you a little sneak peek. I will tell you exactly what the customers have told you they want in a cloud architect. And this is really serious. So if you understand what we do as a cloud architect, then I'll tell you the kinds of, then you'll hopefully understand why the kinds of projects matter. Bear with me. Let me set up this graphic for you. Should have in about 30 seconds. I'm going to actually give you the list so you don't have to just listen to me or believe me. I'm going to give you the list that CIOs across the world have said, this is what I want in a cloud architect. And I'll show it to you. Okay, so when chief information officers were asked, what do you want in a cloud architect? Here's what they said. They said, we would like someone that could lead the cultural change for cloud adoption. Okay, bear with me. I think I need to reduce this a little bit so you can see it. So they said they would like someone that can lead the cultural change for cloud adoption. Now, leading the cultural change for cloud adoption involves getting stakeholder input, getting stakeholder buy-in, getting leadership buy-in, creating training materials and collateral. So that's one of the main things we do. Now, then they said developing and coordinating a cloud architecture. So developing and coordinating a cloud architecture is meeting with the client, learning their business goals, creating an architecture team, leading a team of engineers to baseline their current technology, understanding how they want to do things, leading an architecture team of 15 to 15 people to respond to RFIs, RFPs, RFQs, create your architecture documents, create your what have you. And then the last thing, it says develop a cloud strategy and coordinate the adoption process. We are going to be using a hybrid multi-cloud strategy. We're going to place 50% of our workloads in our data center and 25% in AWS and 25% in Azure. Now that's normal. So that means the design of that. Now it also says find talent with the necessary skills. Now as architects, because we have to build architecture teams, we're constantly interviewing people. Now I've interviewed about 6,000 people. Assess application software and hardware. Now that means we need to bring in people to examine our storage, our networking, everything else. Establishing best practices across the cloud for across the company. Now you got something here, which is on the cloud. What should our demilitarized zones look like? What should our base operating standard system look like? What should our security policy look like? What should our demilitarized zone design look like? And then they say oversee governance and mitigate risk, which means we will be creating governance structure, change management structure, change control structures, working with IT security people to monitor privacy and develop incident response procedures. We do a lot of that. So incident response procedures are if we're hacked or if we had an earthquake or if we had a fire, who responds, who's on the tech, who speaks to the press, who speaks to the regulators, manage budgets and estimate cost and operate at scale. So why did I go through that? Because that's what we actually do. So if you create a thought leadership document that says, here is a common problem in healthcare, and here's how we can solve it, and you have an architecture that involves the way the people would work currently, the way they'll work in the future, and all the technology that's going to support that hospital to be able to take better care of their patients, get them out of the hospital quicker, reduce negative outcomes, that's a win. Now, if you know the banking industry and you know the banking industry has a problem with XYZ thing, and you create an architecture around that, that is an architecture project. So because architects don't build anything, if you show me that you built something, I'm going to say, okay, you're not an architect. So that's one of the things that belongs in your architecture portfolio. Now, there's a lot of other cool things that belong in your architecture portfolio. Maybe you created reference architectures of a federated IAM environment for a while. Maybe you've created your standard reference architecture for what load sharing across 3 clouds could be like. Maybe you create a reference architecture for a high security demilitarized zone for remote access. Maybe you create a reference architecture. So the point is, these are system designs. Now, because the architect is a business executive, and ultimately somebody comes to us and it's a global retailer and they say, Mike, we're looking to create an AI recommendation engine to increase our sales. And I say, okay, what kind of data do you have? Now, what makes you think the AI recommendation will increase your sales? Do you have information that says this or this will work? Could you tell me, walk me through the process of a customer buying something? Where are your customer pain points along that journey? And if you understand, for example, where are pain points in buying, and you can use technology to automate that, that again is an architecture thing. So what I want you to think of is architecture is about creatively solving problems. Now, how do we solve problems? We get the right people. We figure out how the right people best need to do their job, and then we give them the best technology. So that's an architecture. So don't put something out there with a picture of some AWS services on it. Create a picture where you show the problem, you show the business process, then show the technology architecture, data center 1, data center 2, then show servers, then show storage, then show compute, then show your DMZs. And that's your basic architecture. And then if you want to take that into various solutions architectures where you replace it with various vendors' technologies, that's good too, because that way you've got the people process architecture, the business architecture, you've got your overall technology architecture, which is what you're going to be really dealing with, because everything's going to be 50 to 100 vendors, not a single company. And then after that, you've got it. So it may sound a little goofy. So join us on the architecture webinar tomorrow, where we can go into real depth about what we do in all these roles. and the skills that you need. And I'll have a list of things that we can talk about for projects that you can do in that webinar as well. Also, for AI architect roles, what project should one focus on? So the projects all involve how would you make a client more efficient? So does a customer have a problem with does a company have a problem with their customer service? Do they not have enough people? Are they having problems with various languages? Are they having problems with what is it? Is it long queues or long wait times? Is their help desk staff bad? And by the time the customers deal with level 1 of their help desk, level 2 of their help desk, they're so frustrated. And by the time they get to level 3 where someone can help, the people already returned the product because they're angry. Now, what if AI could do level 1 and level 2 with better than the average person could? And then assuming the AI didn't work and AI solved 50% of the problems, they brought everybody to a level 4 help desk superstar that was so good that they satisfied the customers every single time. They might be able to get away with less people and still deliver better customer service. So that could be an example. What about an organization that's struggling to get code out there? They're a big enterprise technology company. Well, there's some way that company can use AI to generate 30 or 40% more code with the same people. Now, it's not going to be people going and running into ChatGPT. No. But there are ways that it could actually be done and architected where, for example, a company like Microsoft could train their own models with their own data, their own code style, their own best practices, and the way they actually want it done. And then AI can code for the most part almost as well as someone. So think about what you're trying to do. AI, for example, could help an airline better purchase fuel purchase option car, better purchase fuel, because most airlines, for example, they hedge and they buy an option on a fuel at a certain price by guessing. Maybe AI could make a better inference as when's the right time to buy. You know, banks are already using AI to buy, sell, and trade stocks. So could you create a better, faster trading algorithm? So these are AI architecture things. Creating an agentic AI environment for a call center where 80% of the call center doing basic stuff is AI. Creating an agentic AI environment where you've got an AI software developer and an AI DevOps engineer. And that's managed by an agentic AI system. And when you've got above that is one superstar distinguished engineer that manages 4 or 5 of these systems. So really think about how you can solve problems with AI. You know, can AI be placed on an airplane where if the pilot, for example, had a heart attack, AI can fly the plane home? Maybe you don't need 2 pilots on an airplane that way. What if the 2 pilots get sick on an airplane? Or what if some anomaly occurs that the people aren't trained for and don't know what to do? How could AI be used in healthcare? So, for example, radiologists are about 75% effective at examining X-rays, MRIs, CAT scans. AI is about 75% effective. But you take that 75% effective radiologist and that 75% effective AI and make a 95% accurate diagnosis. Yeah, so that's something you could look into when you could talk about it. Could AI go through a patient's medical record and notice that there were certain disease patterns that were missed along the years and make health promotion or health and wellness recommendations? It sure can. So what you should focus is solving real world problems, because that's what architects do. Architects don't build, we solve problems. So as long as you remember that you're going to be a systems designer, a solutions designer, and as long as you focus on that, you should be in good shape. So focus on that, focus on articles, give presentations about these technologies. That's exactly what you're going to do with an architect. So the best way to do it is do the same projects that you would do in the real job and show how awesome you are. And you should be really great that way. I don't have a lot of time to answer too many questions. So if you've got any, I've got to leave fairly soon. Just get them in now. I want to make sure I can do anything I can to help. Tony, you're currently working as a PCA at Houston Methodist, but you're interested in going for the solutions architect position. How would you advise I target the role? So I think by PCA, you mean your patient care associate or something like that, or like a nursing assistant. I could be wrong. I am a nurse practitioner. I was a nurse before that, but I also think of PCA as patient-controlled analgesia, and and a couple other things that go into my head with that same one. Professional cloud architect, for example, from Google. So what I would do is I'd do what I did, is realize that you're going from one career to another. And when I was a nurse practitioner, and I'm not joking, I was a nurse practitioner, and I said, I want to be a network engineer. I went, I got the right training. When I was done the right training, I learned everything that the hiring managers needed, and poof, I was hired as a senior network engineer as my first job. Okay, you said, so I did get your job right. Perfect. I wanted to make sure that I did. Now, I can tell you, I've worked with Camille, for example, was a nurse, and she's now a director of architecture, which means she went to the architect role, then the senior, and now she's in that principal, the director level architect. And I was very happy to see that with her today. So the good news is, Tony, you have a lot of things that you can carry with you. So when you're working in a clinical environment, you have a couple of things that are challenging. One, the patients are challenging, the family members are challenging. And I wish I could say that nurses were the sweetest and nicest people in the world, but they're not. So, and then you got the doctors, and some of them are mean and cranky and nasty too. So when you're in an environment and people are sick and they're not feeling well, nobody's happy and nobody's nice and nobody's polite. Now, I am sure you've developed a degree of emotional intelligence over time, which is the best predictor of your long-term career success, by the way, is your level of emotional intelligence. And it's absolutely critical. So that you probably have, which is good. Now, I'm also sure in that role that you're in, you are comfortable talking with people. So that, again, is going to be good. Those two things are going to help you. And in healthcare, you've got to ask a lot of questions, and you've got to listen for answers. And even if you're not the prescriber or the nurse that are there, you're still there double checking and triple checking and things like that. So all those things that you've done, they're going to be good characteristics and traits that are going to get you there. My easiest people to train to be architects are typically medical people, and they're typically salespeople. I'm not saying that I haven't had engineers. I've trained Jawad, for example. Jawad was a cloud engineer for a decade, and then we trained him, and he got hired at AWS. Our Harsha, for example, was a cloud engineer for a decade, and we trained him, and then he got hired as an architect. Logo, for example, was an engineer. Wow, Logo was smart, and Logo is terrific in every way. We worked with her for about a year now. She's working as an architect, but you can see it's a different job, engineer to architect, which is no different than nurse, no different from nursing assistant, no different from me. When I paid my way through college, I was an EMT first, and then I was a paramedic while I was paying my way through school. And I worked at a hospital as a monitor tech. So, I did all kinds of things to survive. Then I worked as a nurse. Then I had my own clinic as a nurse practitioner. And then I said, I love tech, but it's going to be a lot easier with the right training. So I personally would recommend a course like ours, because I know that we teach architecture and basically only charge a day's pay or 2 days pay at the most for the average graduate in America. And we keep you in the program until you're hired. But I would encourage you, if you're not with us, to at least come tomorrow and learn every skill that you need to learn, and then figure out how you're going to learn them, because that's the key. If you don't have the skills, we just can't hire you. But if you have the skills, I don't care what you've done and where you've done it. The nurse who's just graduated with an RN is still doing the same job as an RN with 20 years experience on day one. A physician's day one, once they're finished the residency, is the same day one as if they were practicing for the last 30 years. And it's the same thing for architecture. The way you learn architecture is to be taught architecture. And if you taught architecture and you're great at architecture, you'll be incredibly well. So I kind of hope that helps. Did I actually answer everyone's question? Because if I have answered everyone's question, then I was here. I will go back to work this afternoon. I will be back on this channel working on Google things. But let me remind you of a couple of free things. I really would love to meet some of you on our webinar tomorrow on how to become an architect. And this way we can ask questions. You can ask, I can assess you if you want. If you want to see if you've got a certain set of skills or not, I can assess you. You're not getting calls back, I'm happy to look at your LinkedIn profile on our free architecture webinar, but we'll talk about architecture. We'll talk about what we do. And you can ask us any questions about our training or about your career, and we'll do them live and free on Zoom. So join us tomorrow on that free webinar. I'll also have a guide for those that asked about the cloud architect career. You can actually download a guide on our YouTube channel Tyrone will just drop that into the chat box over here. And I will see many of you this afternoon in the free Google Professional Cloud Architect training. Take care, everyone.